data storage, message systems, data warehousing, and then the newest thing is, well, not so new, but no SQL databases where it's actually not using SQL queries. It's actually using very basic level queries. But what you can do with it is immense, right? The reason why we don't use SQL there is because SQL is something that some people find it difficult. Plus, there are certain limitations when you use certain query. It's all query based, right? So it's not instruction based, it's basically on query based. So then there are options that you can actually use a no SQL database as well. So this is just some of the solutions that are out there, right, for big data analysis. But let's try to understand. I think the interesting thing will be even going further, um, is like uh, some of the open source solutions we have out there, which is a lot cheaper and which is very flexible, right? Which is something that we should always think about. So then Hadoop is one of the up and coming open source programs written in Java, but highly scalable, and it's written specifically thinking of data analytics and data warehousing, or data or in terms of the concepts with it, which is within the big data community, right? Highly scalable. It's a distributed system rather than a standalone, and then it's a what it does is it creates a bit of a fault tolerant ecosystem as well. Let me try and explain some of the concepts there. So there's Hadoop Yarn, distributed file system, and Hadoop MapReduce, right? Used to now, if you think about some other concepts here, it's used for now. MapReduce is used to loading the data from a database, formatting it, and performing a quantitative analysis on it. So, like a lot of people think when you have big data, you cannot use traditional, sit and let's look at the data sort of thinking to analyze what big data can do for you. So you need to use certain amount of tools. So I think when people think about the new the new world in terms of data analysis, the ones who are actually going to be doing well are people who can actually manage some of these tools as well, right? So in terms of data distribution systems, it comes with a own clustered file storage system, which is highly fault tolerant, right? um, then in terms of the bandwidth, throughput, all of that is taken care of internally. So you don't have to do, you don't have to spend hours or a lot of uh, mind time in terms of sorting through these issues. So that is one reason why people adopt these sort of solutions. So next time you are thinking of doing something on those lines, think of don't stick to the norms, don't think of the standard solutions that you need to go with. You can actually use a lot of open source solutions. The Hadoop is one, there are many. Just giving you some advantages of that particular system. So if you look at the ecosystem, this is how it all comes together, right? You have a workflow management system, right? Now a lot of people, something that people think about is they try to build these on separation. So what the head of ecosystem does is you can bring all of them into one layer, one platform, right? So workflow system is very important in terms of a database. Then you have scripting, you have SQL queries, machine learning, which is another concept within the big data world. Interactive analysis, and then you have reporting, which is which is JSON. So different ones. Then you have something called a zookeeper, which is like the coordination between these two elements, among these different solutions, right? So you have data collection, different aspects of data collection. Then you have to manage the entire core of it, you have a Apache Ambari. Then you have all these data processing layers, right? You have data processing, cluster resource management, and the file distribution system. So this is just one ecosystem, right? There are many ecosystems that you can use, and you will notice if you really go into the depths of this. If you do a little bit of analysis, you will notice that pretty much the whole administrative, security, and certain aspects of what we try to manage with a human intervention, actually most of it is actually managed by the system itself. So you don't have to kill yourself to do certain things. That is why that's one thing you need to be concerned with, because the system itself sustains itself, so you just have to make sure the correct parameters are there, and time to time updates are done. That's all. Rest of it, it takes care of it, on its own. So I want to just touch base on a few components with aviation and big data, just using some of the examples that we see out there. I thought it's good to share with you. So okay, before we go there, any questions you all have in terms of some of the components that we touched base so far? Anything that you all want to ask or think about in terms of simply databases, or in terms of even some of the big data aspects that we thought about, some of the concepts rather. Any questions at all?
Yeah, Chintaka, Devinder here.
Mm-hmm.
Just for my own interest
Yeah,
now,
Devin. Yeah.
instead of SQL, what are the other scripting languages that we can use instead of SQL if you're not using that?
Okay, so I mean, I know SQL has been there for a long time, but then the
Yeah.
newest, the thing that people are actually going for is no SQL. There's a scripting language called NoSQL. So you don't you it's like total different. Well, not total different. It doesn't go into SQL. So SQL, you need a bit of technical knowledge, no, to do SQL. Otherwise, you need to learn that a little bit, right? So
Yeah.
NoSQL is a scripting language that actually doesn't use the SQL base at all. It's actually quite a popular one because you don't need to have a lot of programming knowledge, right? If you are a data scientist and if you're purely looking at manipulating data to get certain models out, NoSQL is a really good one that you can use. There are a couple of open source ones that JMeet is another one, right? JMeet is actually an open source one, which is pretty good. You can actually do a lot of scripting through JMeet. JMeet also doesn't take a lot of knowledge. If you have basic software, basic programming knowledge is there, you can and there are lots of tutorials. The good thing about open source is there's plenty and more tutorials, unlike some of these hard and fast um, software out there, so hard and fast languages out there. You can learn a lot on your own. So JMeet is another really good one. JMeet is something that one of the companies that I work with, they do a lot of work with, because there's a lot of flexibility around JMeet, even for testing, right? Let's say you want to test out a few models without trying to put it onto the platform itself. You can use JMeter. That's another popular one that is out there. So those two are quite decent, I would say. Try the NoSQL. For if you are from the SQL world, you might find NoSQL to be a very easy way of doing it.
Mhm.
I mean, just for your info, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so those are the ones which we from the open source world. NoSQL and JMeet are pretty. It's like one of the trending sort of languages out there at the moment.
Yeah. How about their compatibility with the current systems, with DBS and all the
Okay.
databases?
Yeah. So I mean, if you look at if you look at
Mm.
legacy systems are. I mean, anyway, you have complications with legacy systems because I mean their architecture is quite old, no? Right? Because of that, you have some issues there.
Yeah.
Other than that, no. I mean, if you're using a purely if it's a new project, like if you're like let's say the last 5 to 8 years, then NoSQL and JMeter will I mean, because all are Java based, right?
Mhm.
All are Java based in that sense. So if Java is there, then they will there are what do you call, there are integrators that you can use for the
Okay.
standard one. Then you can use it. It's not a big issue.
Mm.
I mean, if you're looking at the last 10 years, I would say. Beyond that, of course, you may have certain complications with very old legacy systems, right? If you're running a, I don't know, like let's say your front end is like an AS400, then of course you may have some problems. But then
Yeah.
if it's not, then you should be okay.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Chandra.
No problem, no problem. Thanks for asking. Okay, so in terms of big data, I would like to just present a few case studies in the sense some of the things that the world is doing, right? Because of the wealth of information that you have with this industry, and I guess pretty much all of the industries, if you really drill down to it, right? Um, One thing for people who are in the engineering world, this might be interesting. There's a lot of predictive maintenance that is being taken care of by big data, right? Obviously, I mean, big data is an umbrella term that I'm using, but through big data, let's just put it like that. By using predictive analytic, like all of these need analytical models, right? Now, when you have big data, you can come up with different models. So, Rolls-Royce, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, all of them have come up with some very interesting data analytic models or analysis models that will help them to make decisions about engine maintenance and overall maintenance of certain, I would say, certain devices, right? What it does is it actually helps them to do some predictive maintenance, as well as give them enough insight as to when certain defects might start triggering. So with working with the industry bodies, they are able to do some replacements. They are able to look at I mean, to ensure the accidents don't happen before their time, or actually that the proper analysis is done before the flights actually take off, right? So even some of the mechanical tools that they use, or other checklists that they use, are derived out of the maintenance systems that they run through these data models. So one thing, I mean, a huge aspect of uh, big data helps out with predictive maintenance. That's a massive area actually. I mean, we can do a session entirely on predictive maintenance if we really want to. That's the level of depth they go into in terms of predictive maintenance through AI. There are different models that you can use. So I would suggest, if you're interested, do a little bit of research on this particular subject. There are models that they have actually given to the industry as well, that others are using, and there are proprietary models they use as well. So just do a bit of research on it. So one area is that. Then they now Airbus and Boeing have come up with a nice model where they do a lot of data resale, right? So because of the nature of the data that they have, and how big it is, uh, through data modeling they have realized there are certain specific information that is needed for manufacturers, distributors, marketeers, people who would be interested in certain areas through using the data that is available to them. They have done this. So for you all also, what I would suggest is, um, there are so many models that you can come out with when you actually start thinking in terms of big data, right? And looking at the overall level of data and the depth that your information systems would start looking at. This is just one model, right? Data resale is one model. Data partnering is another model. Business concept designing is another model. So there are different models that you can think about. So that's just another one. Um, Another huge advantage that most of the airlines were using before the whole pandemic started. I have read that Lufthansa, I think British Airways, Emirates, all of them are using this particular model, real-time data analysis to save fuel, right? So because they have variable data and they have standard data, they're able to look at certain models to see what would be the ideal flight path in terms of ideal cargo weight. How do you balance the weather? How do you balance all of this with the weather conditions? So using certain variable information, their data models are able to tell them slight deviations in the path even, right? So you can even and relay that information, obviously through systems you relay that information to air traffic control, so that they can also make judgments in terms of saving certain even airspace, avoiding certain weather patterns or risky air patterns. So that's another. So in terms of costing, of course, you will save on the fuel, but in terms of risk also, you will avoid certain situations because you are using multiple data points to make a decision, not just one or two data points, right? So this is another area that a lot of advanced models are used in terms of data fuel, what do you call, real-time data analytics for fuel saving. Fuel is a very expensive thing in the airline industry, I don't have to tell you guys. So that's another thing that they have using it. And another very interesting thing which I saw is what they are doing with the airports. This I think we can, even if you look at Sri Lanka, and even I know I was involved in a particular project with the Ministry of what do you call, Ministry of not agriculture, who are into heritage, who are all these heritage sites. I forget the name of the ministry. So we were trying to work out something where a user, somebody who has a mobile application, can actually use augmented reality with the data set that you have to take them through the entire historical sites in Sri Lanka, right? So when you visit a particular site, it will give you information, it will give you direction, all of that. Now let's say you point at something, it will tell you like the king who built it, the history behind it, the story, all that. So that even without a guide or anything, you can just take that journey and you'll get to know. So something similar Gatwick is using at the moment, where like I told you in the morning, a lot of people spend a few hours in an airport, right, in transit and all that. So there's a lot of revenue that you can make out of it, right? And then people tend to get lost, people tend to get into different situations because of lack of information, even though you may have so many counters, etc. So what they've done is they've come up with a little uh, navigation tool that you can download as soon as you enter the airport. It's a small app, very small app, nothing too extravagant, which when you point with your camera, on the camera itself, they'll like this picture shows, let's say you want to go to terminal A or something, example, it will point you how to get there. Let's say you want to go to a specific place in a duty free, it will point you how to go there, washroom. So so the people have a better experience, right? And you can actually guide people to certain things, and you can do a lot of marketing on it as well. Let's say you're you can use a little bit of marketing tools to kind of promote certain products, promotions, because in those countries the duty free is a huge it's a revenue gainer, right? I mean, here I think most of us just pass through it, and unless unless they have something on discount or something, but they make use of that revenue. It's a huge revenue for the airport, that when you have a very sophisticated, very well balanced duty free, which I think we also need to think of, because you do have a lot of tourists who come here, and I don't think it really caters to them, right? So then so something like this, so you can also think, I mean, this is just an application which works on AI and AR, which is not very difficult to make, right? I suppose this application also was either written in Sri Lanka or somewhere like that, because we have enough and more people who can do it. So this is just another example I'm giving. Then in terms of I just want to cover a few areas like fuel efficiency, personalized offers that we kind of looked at, then smart maintenance, performance measurement if in terms of the terminals, and in terms of people as well, right? Customer segmentation, demand forecasting. um, One thing with data is you can actually create a centralized view of the customer, right? You can really make sense of what sort of customers you get, internal, external, either way. Then optimize flight routes. All of these are just very few examples I'm saying. If you drill in a little bit, there are a lot of things we can do in our part of the world as well, using some of these. All of these are done elsewhere, right? These are things which are out there. So you can think of some of these things, how you can adopt it internally and externally as well, right? Okay, did you were you able to listen to that? I'm sorry, I couldn't check whether you all heard the volume on that. I have a video that I want to just show it to you. Let me me see if I can share the, hold on. Okay.
We live in a world where everyone is constantly connected. We are unconsciously producing 2.5 quintillion bytes of data each day. Over the last 2 years alone, 90% of the data in the world was generated. This trend affects how we communicate and how we consume information, but also how businesses operate. 78% of companies believe big data is likely to fundamentally change their operations over the next 3 years, and HR is no exception. Modern HR systems rely more than ever on automation, analytics, and predictive capabilities. Using workforce data enables HR to make decisions that drive both better business and people outcomes. Now, you're probably thinking, this is all very abstract. Are companies really implementing HR analytics? The answer is absolutely yes. And you know them too. Multinationals like Facebook, Amazon, Credit Suisse, Google, and LinkedIn are all doing it. In fact, Credit Suisse saves up to $100 million every year by increasing their retention rate after creating a more data-driven HR function. Big data, big savings. Companies that implement people analytics are 56% more profitable than their less data-driven competitors. That's why, in the last decade, 72% of businesses in the United States increased their spending on analytics, and more investments lead to more jobs. The digital workforce analytics market is expected to be worth more than $1 billion by the year 2023. The projected amount of jobs that require data analysis skills is 5 million in the US alone. Great news, right? You have a chance to grab these opportunities. You just need the right skills. Are you fluent in performing data analysis, using spreadsheets, programming, interpreting statistics, database management, big data, machine learning, and predictive analytics? Not yet? That's no surprise. Companies rate their HR teams low on analytical skills. Just 8% felt that the current state of their HR analytics was strong. There simply aren't enough people who possess these skills to take on the data-driven jobs. In fact, a study by LinkedIn shows that only 18% of HR professionals currently have these skills. It's also projected that the skill gap will keep growing. University of California estimates that the global demand for data scientists has already exceeded the supply by over 50%. But you've probably heard this before. It's no secret that data, digitalization, and analytics are becoming crucial in HR. Now is the time for you to upgrade yourself and develop the skills of the future. It's time for you to become data-driven. Bridge the gap. Take charge of your career.
Okay, so I thought to share something on that specifically because see this trend of data analytics and all that is coming through, and I think all of us need to kind of understand what sort of level we need to have in terms of the data analytical skills that you need to have. So this just some videos that I thought would be interesting to watch. Okay, let's move on. So if there's any questions, you can always ask. Data science, so let's just drill a little bit into that. I'll share this video as well. So I thought a few videos might be interesting just to get an idea, right?
We will be explaining the different aspects of data science, including what data science means, how data science is shaping different industries, why is it important, and most importantly, what are the different steps involved in the whole data science process. So let's begin. So why is data science and the analytics industry growing so rapidly? In 2019, the analytics industry has grown to $3.03 billion in size and is expected to double by 2025. Overall, the analytics industry currently accounts for almost 21% of the whole IT industry in India. If you look at the adoption of data science in different industries, you would see that finance and banking contributes to most of it. So what is data science? Data science is the study of data. It involves developing methods of recording, storing, and analyzing data to effectively extract useful information to make informed decisions. The goal of data science is to gain insights and knowledge from any type of data, both structured and unstructured. Data science is being used across different industries already. With the advancements in predictive modeling, data scientists can help predict the outcomes of disease given the historical data of the patients. With data science, Banks can manage their resources efficiently and make smarter decisions through fraud detection. In the transport sector, data science has actively been used in the automation of self-driving cars. The applications are numerous, and this is just the beginning. Now let's see what are the different stages involved in the data science process. Step 1. Define the problem. Before you get into data, you need to first define what your business problem is. What are you trying to achieve, and what are the different parameters on which your end results depend on? To give an example, suppose you are the owner of a multi-brand retail chain. You want to add product lineups for your customers. But which product would make the most sense to the end user? To decide upon a product, you must understand which of the existing products make more sense to your users, understand their psyche, their purchase behavior, and based on these parameters, shortlist the right product for your customers. Step 2. Obtaining the data. Based on the parameters defined in Step 1, pull out the data. This part of the process involves thinking through what data you'll need and finding ways to get that data, whether it's querying internal databases or purchasing external datasets. Collecting data takes 19% of the total time spent in the entire process. Step 3. Scrubbing, cleaning the data. This process is for us to clean and to filter the data. In this process, you need to convert the data from one format to another and consolidate everything into one standardized format. A few common things to check are 1. Missing values. 2. Corrupted values, such as invalid entries. 3. Time zone differences. 4. Data range errors. Data cleaning itself takes around 60% of the time for the entire process. Step 4. Exploratory data analytics. First of all, you will need to inspect the data and its properties. Different data types like numerical data, categorical data, ordinal data and nominal data, etc. require different treatments. The next step is to compute descriptive statistics to extract features and test significant variables. You'll have to look at some of the most interesting patterns that can help explain why sales are reduced for this group. Step 5. Data modeling. Data modeling is the process of producing a descriptive diagram of relationships between various types of information that are to be stored in a database. Something as simple as an online transaction can be broken into items sold, user demographics, time of sale, etc. One of the goals of data modeling is to create the most efficient method of storing information, while still providing for complete access and reporting. Data modeling is a crucial skill for every data scientist. Step 6. Data visualization. Data visualization is a graphical representation of any data or information. Visual elements such as charts, graphs, and maps are the few data visualization tools that provide the viewers with an easy and accessible way of understanding the represented information. It allows you to easily grasp information, establish relationships between elements, intuitive, personalized, updatable data. Now, let's cover the top 5 skill sets required to become a data scientist. SQL tops the chart, followed by Hadoop and Python. R is catching up too. Knowledge of these tools helps a data scientist derive a useful insight. So, this was a brief introduction.
I hope that was insightful for you to now. The thing is that when you look at it, you might think, oh my god, how are we going to do this? But all of this is taken care of by systems, right? Nobody sits and does this anymore, right? That's why you have all these query building software, you have all these systems that are there. So when you actually think of a when you think of a database management system, that's why I always started with, when we were talking about the business users getting involved, right? The reason why business users getting involved at enterprise level, at the very conceptual level, is that they will actually conceptualize the business rules, the business model that needs to happen, right, at enterprise level. So when you do that, building in the other building blocks to have a big data AI related model where you can do data science and you can do data digging, data mining, etc., is not very complex. If you try to do it at the end only, it becomes a little bit of a complex situation, right? So even then there are tools, there are data modeling tools, there are data science tools that some of the things that we spoke about that you can still use, right, with available existing data. So making use of available data is what we kind of encourage in terms of big data, because if you try to do up everything, then you lose the time and you lose the data that you have anyway. So all of these are actually taken care of by you need people who understand data science, obviously, but the tools are there. The tools are within are inbuilt, and you can use those tools to actually gain some insight into the modeling techniques that you need to do. So moving forward, let's quickly right. So so there are certain concepts, right? That there are certain concepts like machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence systems that we use, and the whole point is that it's just to create that insight into data analysis and the business models that you need to have to make use of those analysis. I mean, a lot of analysis can be done, but if you don't have people creating business models out of it, then you kind of lose the whole ball game as well, right? Couple of other things that you need to remember. Um, Big data is mainly on the data range. Big data and data science should not be confused, right? So data science is all about analyzing data. It's understanding patterns and trends, predictive analysis, things like that, right? With with the information, with the data that you have. As you know, any industry, right? Any industry can use it, but within an industry, within certain specific segments of certain industry like sales, advertising, risk analysis, data science plays a big role, because you can actually you can drill down into very specific stuff. So aviation is another industry that has a lot of metadata level stuff, right? Metadata that you can use to do a lot of data science related stuff, marketing, sales, risk management, things of that nature can really benefit out of data science. If you have any questions, please go ahead, you can ask. If not, what I would like to do now is talk a little bit about what machine learning does, so that people understand what machine learning is. I'm sure you would have heard about this term some time ago. So if you take a basic if you take any program, programs are run on what are known as algorithms, right? Don't worry about the terminology, just think of it as a set of instructions that does a procedure, does some sort of an activity, right? So when you have bunch of these algorithms working together, you can create a model, a basic data model, right? This data model can be also called as a machine learning algorithm, right? So sometimes you would sometimes see, um, even in movies and all that also, there are intelligent computer systems, right? Who kind of work like a human, not exactly like a human, but work like a human, right? So certain thinking patterns, so these are learned, right? So one aspect of being a human being is the ability to learn something. So you can teach a machine also to do that. You can teach a machine also to learn, right? So these learning models, these learning algorithms are what are known as machine learning algorithms, right? Machine learning tools or models, right? So they are able to do like basic things like pattern recognition, or even to actually learn certain processes on their own, right? So you can teach a machine to look at what happened, and then model something and learn, right? So linear regression, logistic regression, decision trees, even though they sound very computing, um, are basic things that human beings also use, right? We have a hierarchy of how we make decisions. So the same thing with the machine, right? Artificial neural networks, and others are this is just for your information. So machine learning is actually machine learning is used a lot in very technical skills at the moment, like engineering. Machine learning is done a lot in neuroscience, medical field, where you can teach machines to carry out certain activities, which is maybe time critical or even needs a lot of precision, especially with like a surgeon. So there are machines who do that. A surgeon will teach them certain things. There'll be a surgeon to overlook the whole thing, but the machine operates, right? Which is when you so science sounds a little scientific, like science fiction, but it can be done. So even introduction of robotics, robotic management, all of that actually came out of machine learning. So that's just a little bit about machine learning. um, so you need to have a decent idea of mathematics when you do this. um, can be implemented with any one or range of modern programming languages, right? So again, there are no limitations. With the beauty of this is it doesn't really limit you to this particular program or algorithm, and many of the nowadays open source as well as other algorithm, like even certain standalone systems now, they actually have the possibility of machine learn. So the models are already there, you just have to use it at the appropriate level. So you don't have to be like a real genius to come up with machine learning models on its own, right? Even certain relational database systems, they come with their own models now. So you just have to do a bit of tweaking to get it across to make it relevant to your business. So it opens up a lot of opportunities for automation, a lot of analytics to be done, data analytics to be done, because you can teach a machine to do that, right? You can teach a machine to do data analysis because it's learning. So then some of the models that are used, right, or other right some of the basic functions of machine learning is all modeling, right? It's about data modeling. It's about modeling certain concepts, right? So certain rules, numbers, algorithms, all of those need to be modeled. But like I said, these models are now available, right? You can use one which is already there, or even you can looking at your data, you can model it. So that is why sometimes you need data scientists to actually be a part of it, because that takes a bit of intelligent work, right? One of the key things that they do with machine learning is the machine is able to problem solve. Now this sounds a little okay, how does a machine problem solve unless it's programmed? So without you having to program it, right, you can actually get them to learn to solve real world problems, right? Now imagine if you have like lots of emails coming into your server, right? Let's say into your inbox. You can teach your machine to actually filter out spam and actual emails, right? Actual valid emails. So that's a learning process. So you can do that. There are actually machine learning algorithms that people use to do this, right? And then the advantage is at some point you can actually automatically program a machine to do certain things, right? Write code to take care of databases, to take care of customer queries. So there's a lot of room that gets created when you actually teach machines to do certain things. You can put your people to more value-added tasks. You don't have to get them to do payroll and all those things if you actually teach machines to do that, right? And you can look at reducing overall labor if that is a problem. But I think the advantage is human beings are meant to do certain more intelligent things, right? Make better decisions, to be a part of better processes. So I think rather than people doing mundane tasks, very boring sort of things, or even things which uses a lot of computing knowledge, like computing power, you can get a machine to do it. You can teach a machine to do that, which saves a lot of time, effort, and gives a better result sometimes even. So any questions on up to this point? There are a few other things that I want to touch base, which we will slowly do. So these are just concepts that I'm bringing in, because if for you to think, now we were talking about databases and data and information, right? But all of these is just data and information unless you use it productively and efficiently. And for you to use it productively and efficiently, big data is a major concept. Artificial intelligence is a major concept. Data science, machine learning is another concept. So those are the concepts that I just wanted to share with you, so that when you think of a system, you will think in these terms, not just with simple data, right? So another thing that I want to talk about is artificial intelligence. um, right? So this is what actually makes it possible for a machine to learn, and you can introduce new inputs, new variables, just like a human, or I won't say just like a human, maybe close to certain aspects of a human in terms of thinking. They are able to shift around and use the most appropriate tool or the most appropriate mechanism, because they've learned it along a certain period of time, right? So um, one thing with AI is it actually automates repetitive learning and discovery through data, right? So it's faster, more efficient. It has the capability to do that. Um, the advantage with AI is it's just not automating manual tasks, right? I mean, anybody can do that, but AI performs these things at a frequently higher level, high volume, and um, where a lot of intelligence is needed, right? Where you need to make intelligent decisions, right? That's where artificial intelligence really plays a very key role, um, right? And so since it's not a human, it doesn't have fatigue, it doesn't have emotional issues, essentials to set up a system and ask the right question, because it can do all those things as a machine, right? It can ask questions, it will answer its own questions, it will do its own research. So that's why people use AI, and why we are talking about AI so much in this world. Then I want to just share some AI examples out of the aviation industry, right? Now Airbus is using AI for observation tasks like computer vision, time series analysis, and natural language processing, predictions such as hybrid modeling and decision making, right? So Airbus, I think all of you are aware of Airbus. So in terms of their business models, rather than getting people to do it, and you can imagine the amount of data that you have to amount of data sets you have to analyze to do this, right? Rather than using humans to do it, rather than using their own capacity to do it, they have taught models, they have taught machines to do this. So what happens is, when somebody needs a certain to make a certain decision, or even before a decision is made, information is available where certain analysis has been done, where you can refer and make certain business model decisions, right? So even with aviation industry, like for the aviation authority, I'm sure there's so much of data that is available, right? If we can actually look at modeling it to kind of cater to some other more specific areas that we need to look at, then um, then this Skywise is the Airbus data analytics platform, and especially with the pandemic and all of that, they've actually started gathering information and analyzing information in terms of the air traffic operation. Now in Sri Lanka, I think we are not, I mean, we don't operate at that level, but I think in other parts of the world they have started operating, right? So they're looking at using the information they had for certain pattern recognition and all that, and to really figure out what are the restrictions that you need to do, what are the what are the routes that you will not probably run, and air traffic fluctuations, how that will work with a certain live data. So there's a lot of information that gets processed along those lines. Then another major area I think even Sri Lanka could really benefit out of is autonomous aerial vehicles. And in places like Germany and Japan, there are autonomous vehicles that people use for aerial sightseeing, tourism, etc. We haven't done a lot of, we do have a lot of what do you call drones and things like that. I think the Air Force is also using drone technology to a certain level. But those are all intelligent systems that you need to have a lot of AI power, right? Then this is another area that is now really people are focusing on, especially China. Especially in China, they are doing a lot of research and a lot of experiments on autonomous aerial vehicles for air mobility, urban air mobility, to cut down on traffic, etc. Even for goods delivery, it's a huge thing that the US is already using. DHL, uh, FedEx, they're all using what do you call drone technology to deliver parcels, etc. So these are areas that people need to kind of think about as well. So within an airport, within certain restricted areas, how much of robotics, how much of AI information can you use? That's another area to think about, right? um, then we spoke about predictive maintenance, then air traffic management itself, and ground handling and security. Those are three main areas that significant improvements and automation is taking place through artificial intelligence, data science, and even using certain predictive models and predictive analytical tools, where because these all use a lot of unstructured data. Okay, there's not a lot of structure around security information, ground handling. All of them have a certain amount of structured data, but most of it is data that is in unstructured form. But if you use data models, you can actually get it into a way where you can make use of the data itself. Then I think we spoke about machine learning. Then there's something called a neural network, which is kind of an old concept, but it's a constant concept, right? Then is a type of machine learning that is made up of interconnected units. So different units, like our neurons, different units processes information by responding to the they look at the input that they get from the outside world and process it out of the learning that they have already done, right? So they use historical data, data modeling, data analysis, to look at certain information and ensure that they connect with the right sort of neurons, right? So this is all part of a system. These are not standalone alone. These are not standalone. So these are all parts of systems. Then a huge area that people are talking about is called deep learning. This is partly due to certain very specific, like finance, HR, procurement, which is a lot of tacit knowledge is there, right, which is relevant to that organization. Deep learning is a concept that people are now using a lot, where you use neural networks, but it's like a different scale altogether. um, so you need a lot of computing power, and you need to use a lot of training techniques, like machine learning, but different versions of it, um, to process a lot of data points. But deep learning is where it's a pure learning process, right? Where from everything from engineering to finance, you can actually get a machine not to do the task itself, but to give you insights about the learning process, right? What it learns. So when it learns, it comes out with different models, right? So you can help people to make better decisions, right? So speech recognition, image processing, pattern recognition, things which will help you to make good business decisions, right? Then another area is computer vision. um, Computer vision is I think some of us will remember OCR, like optical character recognition, though that was like an old day version of computer vision. Computer vision goes a little bit in front, uh, and because what it does is when machines can process, analyze, and understand images, right? So especially in the area of fraud detection, customs, border control, this is heavily used in the United States, as well as you would have maybe in certain movies you would have seen facial recognition, right, where they can identify characters who are either terrorists and who are risk to certain areas. So even banks, they use this a lot, maybe not in Sri Lanka but in international, like in Switzerland and all. They use this a lot when they walk into the bank itself, even to airports. They do a lot of facial recognitions to see whether these are unscrupulous characters, etc. So they link with Interpol, they link with certain systems, to ensure that the process is a very thorough process, right? So a lot of applications, right? So there are certain things called subsets of natural language. or subsets of AI, which is called a natural language, compute and analyze, understand, generate human speech language, right? This now Alexa, I don't know whether you are familiar with Alexa. Google and Android has Alexa. Then there's Siri, which is also using natural language, and there are lots of speech recognition, especially in training and learning and development. You have this a lot. So people try to to get machines to be more human and interact with humans a lot more. So this natural language is coming from that. And we can communicate with the machine as we communicate as humans, right? Which is something not so out there at the moment, right? Now in certain places, in certain airports I have seen, there are machines that you can have a conversation with, and you can ask questions and they'll respond to you in that sense. You don't have to like write code, or it doesn't sound like a computer, it's like a normal person, right? So you can get information. So those are at a very basic level still, but this is a growing industry, a growing trend in the information technology industry. Another few things that I want to talk about is predictive technology. But before I go there, do you have any questions you want to ask me, or like are there points which are a little confusing? So why I'm bringing all of this to you is, when you think about systems, we need to now think in this aspect, right? We need to think, how can we do predictive technology, how can we do data science, how can we use it for big data analysis. It's not just thinking about my little world anymore. You need to think a little deeper, right? So predictive technology is heavily used in the services industry. Now Facebook, Google, all of them use predictive technology, right? Pattern recognition, then marketing trends, analyzing trends and discovering patterns in the data, so that you can give different options, right? So predictive technology, if you look at applications, you would have heard this term called data mining. Data mining is all about digging into data on specific areas, right? Then again, we spoke about neural networks, system models, right, where you can actually the computer or the system itself will model certain solutions, right? And you can run simulations, right? Let's say disaster recovery. Let's say we had unfortunately we had the tsunami, but imagine now of course we do disaster recovery, we do simulations, but certain simulations you can't run on the ground because you need that scale, right? But what these models will tell you is they will run simulations for you. Like in Japan, they use this a lot in terms of natural disasters, city planning, in terms of certain industries like manufacturing. They use simulations a lot to see if you bring in certain variables, what will happen, without having to put people on the ground and doing it, right? So like some of the things that I mentioned here, like terrorist activity monitoring and seeing what are the predictive tools that you can use to ensure security, traffic patterns, stock markets, weather, consumer behavior is a massive thing. I mean, consumer behavior is the first one to do this actually, in terms of data mining. And Facebook was one of the first tools that used the data mining tool and the networking tools that it had with the data to kind of look at significant variables, number of variables, to ensure that their sales are up. So it's out there, people are using it, and when we think of systems, we need to think in those lines. So for you to just think, I thought I'll just present a few ideas, right? Then one thing is revenue management. So if you're looking at define destinations and adjust prices for specific markets, now lots of other places in the world they do it. Like I think one of the key places that does this so well is Maldives, Thailand. They look at specifics for specific seasons, right? Distribution channels, managing of seats, bookings, airlines, competing simultaneously, and how to make it more customer friendly as well, right? I mean, you can use these tools to come up with very unique models. Then another thing is radio frequency identification, which is now, of course, Bandaranaike is not so big. I've not seen, I don't know whether there's a huge baggage issue, but if you take JFK, or if you take even Malaysia, there are millions of bags that go missing, right? It's either mishandled or lost in transit or something, right? So this this radio frequency identification, RFID, right, is something that they use, where they give access to the client as well, the customer, to track his own luggage, so that it doesn't go missing, and if it goes missing, there's proper traceability. Then there's predictive analysis, assisting to improving the predictability of fleet reliability due to certain conditions, weather conditions, could be due to certain terrorist attacks, or due to certain patterns in the business. You may not want to run that, so predictive analysis tools will give you that insight, and that's something that especially airlines like Virgin, they use this predictive analysis a lot. I think one of the reasons why they did well is because they looked at this particular aspect of it very, very closely, right? Then optimizing of airspace is expensive, right? I mean, there are certain rules, regulations that govern this process, I believe, right? So runway bandwidth, flight routes, type of aircraft, taxiing, like if you keep a certain airline on the ground for so long, then the loss is so much, right? Then taxiing issues, where you can't schedule things on a proper way. All of those, there are optimizing tools that you can use. Then again, predictive analytics to determine technical issues way before it even comes to the hangar. We will know that this issue is there, and this is the predictive, this is what we need to do. Then predictive maintenance again, aircraft health. Then AI systems, built-in machine learning algorithms to collect data, analyze flight data, right? So this is all about marketing, distance, and flight crew attitudes, aircraft type, weights, weather, etc., that you can model certain behaviors with. Then other, I think one of the biggest issues that the airline industry has is flight crew health, right? Fatigue related issues, long distance, long overstays, scheduling changes, all of that. So lots of big corporations, like people who are actually making use of data, they have several analytical tools that they use to ensure that they manage. I don't think there's a perfect solution to it, but they manage it, right? Flight crews and health and safety, right? So this particular model that I'm just presenting to you right now, since I see a lot of movement in our helicopter aviation, our civil aviation, there seems to be some movement in terms of helicopter operations. So this is in your booklet. Just have a very good look at it, because this is an end-to-end model that it's actually in use, that you can learn from. I'm not saying to copy it, actually by using from a very going digital, to starting off with just using digital technology, to analytics, all the way up to analytics of what certain industries, a certain country is doing in terms of their helicopter bookings, and civil aviation related stuff to do with helicopter bookings, right? So I thought this was useful for some of you to have a look at it. So it just starts off with very simple digital log cards, fleet keeper digital technical log books. So very basic stuff, but it all the way goes up to analytics, right? Where you can link certain databases, maintenance, and crew support, as well as terminal support. So all of that you can do, right, with data models. So this is actually a working model that is being operated in a certain country, which I thought might be useful for you. just take a good look at it, and then you can figure out what is actually being used, right? Because everything that you do manually, uh, everything that you do currently, that is on a manual system, you can bring it onto a very descriptive data analytic model where you will have inference data, right? Up to now, any questions? All right, so let's move on to the next segment. You would have heard about bots, okay? The famous bot that we all know is Android bot, okay? So that's, I mean, these are bots are known as robots, right? But I'm not going to talk too much about robots, but then we're not going into so much of detail. Um, but in computer programs and in databases, there are lots of uses for bots. Even in our smartphones, even these phones that we use, there are certain bots that the program has written just to help us now. Now even the search tool that we use in certain phones, in certain models, when it connects online, it's actually a bot. Now you would have used certain bots when you go into certain sites. Now I think I went to Sri Lankan Airlines, or so Sri Lankan Airlines, they have a bot. I think I was able to get that right. So another example or another use for a bot is now airline on the ground. I think you are familiar with this concept, right? Aircraft on the ground rather is a huge loss, right? So as long as it's flying, it's making money, but if it's on the ground, nobody's making money, right? So in order to manage this, especially when it comes to maintenance and faults and all that, there are programs written inside the machine itself, through it uses different communication channels through bots, right, to communicate to the hangar itself that these issues are there, right? So then it uses some of the technologies that we were talking about, right? Natural language, artificial intelligence, machine learning. So this is why it's important to know these things, like just to get an understanding that why these things are there, right? So that it uses applications, databases, again open APIs to communicate with the recovery team about the issues, right? So that they are well prepared and well ready to manage it way before the issue actually becomes a major problem. So that's just one aspect of this is again a part of AI. So these chatbots you would have seen, right? These are bots. These are like the most famous application for bots. So Sri Lankan Airlines also has, I think I can't remember the name. I think it's called Aviana or something like that. So when I checked, so this was the image they had. They have a bot, so they are using bots. Hopefully it's a, because bots are like, you can operate them 24/7. There are no limitations. You can get them to learn and do. They will go through certain information and provide the relevant stuff, which is far more revenue efficient, and it creates more opportunities to grow. And you can use bots to work with databases, right? You can use bots to work with certain existing platforms, so that you don't have to put people to do all of that. So that's why bots are important. So if you're thinking of using bots, which is a good thing, think of the databases that you want to probably use some of those techniques as well. And then think about how you can use bots in a productive way. So I want to talk a little bit about data mining and RPA, and leave some room for questions. But before we go there, do you have any questions for me? I mean, I was hoping for a lot more questions, so that we can have some discussions around around some of these subject matters. So these are, I mean, I haven't talked a lot about the technical stuff of it, but I just want you to understand, like, these are there out there in the world. Any questions, anything that you all want to ask me? So you might have even questions like, maybe you're from a different function, maybe you're from a different function of your operation. So do you have any questions related to that, like maybe from finance? Because I know for a fact that lots of international finance companies are using some of these technologies, especially data analytics, predictive technology, to predict some of the models that that are there. One of the things that happened in the world recently was when the pandemic hit. Some of the biggest economies in the world suffered, right? Chinese, America is still a very big. It's a it's a $300 trillion economy, right? I'm just talking about a particular month, not even in years, right? It's a $300 trillion economy for a month. So they also suffered, right? But when these tools were used, and when they started looking at the macroeconomic level, one thing they realized was that the economy was actually recovering, right? The economy was actually recovering in terms of certain aspects, so that they're actually predicting by by 2023, next year, actually a year after, and China is actually recovered. They're actually on a positive growth. America has recovered. By 2022, they're actually predicting a 7.5 growth for those economies, which is crazy when you think about the hit that they took. Why? Because they're able to analyze data. Now, one of the biggest issues we have is the lack of the lack of need to analyze data at this level, and to really look at the macroeconomic level to see whether we are making progress or not. Because you can't simply look at the stock market and say, okay, it's doing great, right? You need to look at the macro level data to analyze it and say whether we are actually making progress, whether the macroeconomy is moving. For any country to move, the macroeconomy has to move, right? Then only the country moves. You can't simply think one or two organizations are doing great and it's perfect. That's not how it works. So you need to kind of think of these models, right? Even for a business, even for certain authorities. Now, if I ask you a question, the next 5 years for the aviation authority, how will it be? What will you do? Can we are we going to go with what we did for the last 20 years, or are we looking at something more? That's why you need to kind of understand the data modeling and the AI aspects of what you do to model certain things, so that you come out with some really good concepts, and you can execute those concepts, and to really live up to the mandate of the authority, right? Consumer protection, finance, all of those need to kind of build these sort of mechanisms there. So any specific areas or anything that you all want to ask me from whatever we covered, because we are coming to the end of our discussions, and there are few things that I would want to share with you. Other than that, we have come to an end, because I was expecting a lot more questions to come through, because this is an industry which is up, and it's very much into data, and very much into data related stuff. So if you don't have any questions, I'll move forward. So just to talk a little bit about data mining, right? So let's kind of look at what data mining is first of all, right? I hope this video will be useful for you to get a basic idea of what data mining is.
Like how mining for gold is digging through earth and rock for the valuable bits, Data mining is sorting through large data sets to find the valuable information. The process of data mining involves using software, algorithms, and statistical methods to identify patterns in data to help answer business questions and predict future trends and behavior. Data mining techniques are used in business areas like marketing, risk management, fraud detection, cybersecurity, medical diagnosis, and mathematics, and research disciplines like cybernetics and genetics. Data mining is a means to drive increased efficiency in business operations, but it can also set a business apart from the competition in combination with predictive analytics, machine learning, and other aspects of advanced analytics. Read more about how these processes work in tandem by clicking the link above or in the description below.
Okay.
Data mining is sometimes used interchangeably with data analytics, but it's really a component of the overall data science and analytics process. Data mining focuses on finding relevant information in data sets, which can then be used for analytics and predictive modeling. There are 5 primary steps to data mining. Identification of business issues to analyze data sources, such as databases or operational systems. Data collection and exploration, including the sampling and profiling of data sets. Data preparation and transformation, to filter, cleanse, and structure data for analysis. Modeling, in which data scientists and other users create, test, and evaluate data mining models. And deployment of the models for analytics use cases. In general, data mining uncovers hidden patterns and relationships in data that can ultimately impact business across all industries. For example, using data mining, businesses can improve lead conversion rates in sales and marketing, build risk models and detect fraud in finance, and improve safety, identify quality issues, and manage supply chain operations in manufacturing.
Okay, so I hope you get a decent idea of what data mining is. A lot of people use this word data mining, but then I think sometimes it's used out of context. In order for you to mine for data, capturing of data is important, and when you think of, that's why I always say, see, even in the morning we were talking about how business leaders and business consultants and people who own processes, work processes, need to be involved with the whole database management or database conceptualizing level, because then only you think of the business problems, then only you think of a business and try to figure out what to do, rather than putting up some system, right? So data mining uses that data which is collected in a very structured way, as you know, she explained in the 5 processes. So those 5 processes are at a very high level, right? You have to drill down into certain models and certain ways of doing it, but all of them, the tools are out there, right? And if the tools are not out there, by predictive analysis and looking at the data models that you have, you can come up with the models, right? There are tools to do that. So you don't have to be like this genius to come out with everything. It's available. So that's on data mining, just to give you that concept. Any questions, anything that you all want to ask on data mining? Okay, so if not, we'll move forward, right? I want to talk a little bit about robotics, process automation. When people hear this word, they think humans are going to get replaced by robots. That's not the concept. The whole concept is using automation processes, right? Automation processes to do certain very basic basic things, basic tasks which take a long time for a human to do, or actually using intelligent systems to do some very critical tasks, right? So you can do either, or you can do both rather. So let's try to figure out what this is. I think for finance, so I'm using a very simple finance example to explain what are the possibilities. If you have any questions, please do ask.
This demo shows how an RPA tool works. RPA can be applied for the automation of transactional rules-based tasks where structured data and clear predefined rules and parameters are used. The solutions are easily and quickly designed, tested, and implemented. They are designed to require relatively low investment or expenditure. This demo shows how a process such as the creation of invoices is executed by an RPA tool. You will see how routine activities can be easily performed by the RPA tool based on predefined rules. The RPA tool used in this demo is Blue Prism. The key steps for the creation of invoices are as follows. In this process, the invoice request is received and opened, relevant data is entered into SAP, and the invoice document is created. At the beginning of the process, the software robot opens the correct environment in SAP and logs in. An invoice request is received by the software robot via email. The robot opens the email and the attached Excel template and scans this thoroughly. Different checks are performed by the robot to determine whether the data from the Excel template is of a certain quality. The software robot runs the transaction code for the creation of invoices in SAP. Subsequently, the invoice data from the Excel template is copied and pasted into the relevant fields in SAP. The robot recognizes if essential information is missing in the invoice request. If this is the case, the robot sends an email to the invoice requester with a request to adjust the specific invoice data. When all the data is entered in SAP, the robot creates the invoice by running the correct transactions. The invoice is then correctly saved for sending. At the end of the process, the robot sends an email to the requester with confirmation that the invoice has been created and moves the invoice request to the relevant subfolder in Outlook. Additionally, all the used applications are correctly closed. You just saw an example of how robotics can be deployed for a finance process. Next to the finance processes, there are many other opportunities for RPA that exist across other functions within the organization. Examples of these include customer care, business operations, IT, and HR. So, are you on the road?
Okay, this was just a very brief layout of what you could do with RPA. Lots of organizations are using RPA to kind of automate some of their very basic processes at a start, and then moving to more exciting business models. But okay, so I thought, shall we look at trying to figure out an example of how data gets captured and how AI and how bots can help, right? So if you look at an example that we shared some time back, right? Let's use a very simple example in terms of the aircraft on ground, on the ground sort of a situation. Imagine that a certain aircraft is grounded for some reason, and you are a passenger in that, right? Let's say you are a passenger who's inside that plane, right? Now you're waiting. Now through using AI, what certain organizations have learned is you can create a little bit more engagement in terms of how information gets rallied, as well as how information gets passed to different organizations, right? What I would like is, I think if you can turn on video, and if you don't mind turning on video and going unmute for this particular session, it might be good so that we can create some interaction, right? So what I would expect is in terms of let's say that you're a passenger and you're now in a plane stuck on the ground, right? Through chat support, certain organizations, what they've done is they've actually introduced a mechanism where you can reach out to the other airlines, right? Your travel, let's say your travel companion or your travel organizer, where you can actually get the information across to them through either web, messaging, emails, or mobility, or whatever, right? So what happens is that particular database captures this initial request that you send, and let's say there are two things that can happen. One thing is you are asking for information and the chat support can give you that information. If not, let's say you are on a travel itinerary, okay? Let's say you are going from Colombo to Australia. From Australia you're going to the European region, right? Let's say you're going to France. So, and because of this delay, now your entire itinerary is now changed, right? You are going to, you have this fear, oh my god, what's going to happen, how am I going to manage, because my entire schedule is now messed up, right? So just a very simple example. I'm sure a lot of people go through it on a well, they used to go through it on a day-to-day basis. So imagine a situation like that, right? So different time zones, okay? Australia is like 5 to 7 hours ahead of us. Europe is couple of hours behind us. So different time zones, but imagine a situation of this nature. If human intervention is there, how much of delays, how many complications will happen, right? As information can get delayed for hours, even days. But through using bots, what you can do is, if the information is on the site, if the information is in a database, the bot will get that information across to the customer as to how the itinerary will change. Imagine the information is not there. Let's say it's a revolving itinerary, right? So it changes as and when. Then the database captures that particular information, right? And through the models that are already in place, they will look at how the itinerary will change, what information needs to go to the next arriving destination, that this particular customer is late, their schedule is changed, they need to be allocated a separate seat on a separate on another plane, right? All of that is now generated automatically, is managed automatically through the system, because the modeling is done, right? Now this same concept can be applied to any internal business as well as an external business. Okay, in any internal process, imagine imagine that you have some sort of a delay in processing payroll. Okay, I will use a very simple example. If you have a delay in processing payroll, so there are a couple of things can happen, right? In the morning I was talking about the fact that, okay, when there are payment issues, there are HR issues that happen, there are operational issues that happen, there are finance issues that happen. So imagine a system that is interlinked and using certain inferences, right? One of the systems that lots of companies use is, they've actually used a lot of bots to answer certain internal questions, right? So finance and HR and marketing and projects, people who are working in them, they use a lot of bot related technology to get certain questions answered, to clarify certain issues. So what happens is, through the database itself, because the database is done in a structured manner, the bot is able to find solutions and give you very straightforward answers to your question. If not, the bot generates a query to the relevant department, so that there's a workflow, there's a process, and it comes through the workflow, and even through the data modeling system, you are able to predict when can certain things go through, right? Even marketing for the next 6 months or the next 1 year, what should be the target markets we should be reaching out to, what are the customers, what are their lifestyles, how can you pitch certain products, what are the products that will make sense, what are the products that should be taken out of the entire portfolio altogether. So these sort of information is easily manageable, because we are using, if you use a lot of predictive tools, right, analytical tools. If not, everything comes down to a person to make a decision, which doesn't always give the right sort of results, right? Which doesn't always give you that hindsight of information. Okay, so I would, I mean, since I think I think through most of the through most of the session today, I've had certain people who've interacted, which is really great. But I would like to have some interaction now with all of you, if you are willing to, that is, uh, so that we create some, we can have some questions. I'm sure now they all are from different departments. There was a gentleman from, I think, engineering, who had some questions, who kind of gave some insight to some of the things that they are doing. So how about any sort of specific areas that you would want to cover, maybe finance or HR or procurement, legal. There's a lot of legal things. There's a lot of value addition that this sort of technology brings into legal aspects, as well, because there's a lot of verification that you need to do. There's a lot of documentation, contract management, things that can happen through predictive analysis and data modeling, and even through database management systems. So can we have some sort of a discussion in terms of how you feel this might be useful? You might even have certain fears. Oh my God, what's going to happen to my job? What am I going to do? I mean, we could explore those, right? I mean, that's the whole point of a discussion. So if you can unmute, you can turn on your video so that I get to see who you are, since you have been looking at me all day. So can we do that now? Is that something possible? So Ajit, I think, I mean, given the context of where things are, um, I mean, I've come to the end of my session actually. I think in terms of information, I've shared quite a bit, for someone to walk away with insight in that sense. So if there are no questions, Ajit, I think I will stop at this time.
Chintaka, thank you very much
Chintaka,
for
thank you
your
very much for your
information given us.
Sure, Tivanka. Thanks for that feedback. My only hope is that you all will use this to kind of think of how you want to take the entire process to a different level, because I think that's the requirement as well, right? I mean, that's what you all want to achieve as well, right?
Devinder here.
Hi, Devinder.
Yeah. To my understanding, what you have done is quite. I'm not going to say it's very clear, right? Because most of us who are here are not that familiar with the concept of databases, right? I think because of the nature of the duties that we do.
Sure.
So
Have I confused you all more? Or did I give you some clarity?
No, actually, for me it's very clear. I have some background on this, so thank you for that.
Sure.
But for
See,
most of the
my
people
my
from operational
sure.
duties.
So my intention also was not to make it very technical, right? That's why I left out like very technical stuff. But I think, I mean, since I've been working with a lot of organizations, one thing I do see is when business users get involved in terms of a system. Um, what you really need to think is, I mean, we moved away from somebody designing a system and you using it. It's like, we need to kind of think, how does this particular system or this particular application or whatever you're going to have, how does it make an impact to you for your business process. So that's why I wanted to bring certain concepts and ideas and certain examples from different places within the same industry, so that you all are able to walk away with a different level of thinking, right? I don't expect anyone to be database gurus after that, which was not the intention anyway, right? But if you all can actually walk away with the fact that how important this is, and what are the elements we need to be thinking of, I think that's good enough, for I mean, from my understanding. And if that was the intention, then I think I met that objective. So yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to have a little bit of more interaction. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, that's how things are. So
Yeah, the thing is, I think when we talk about database management, we need to have data, right?
well, I mean, it's like this. Like I said, Devinder, I mean, see, this is why big data is, people are talking about big data. Data is actually there. You get it. Data is actually, it's now, as we interact right now, there's a whole heap of data on different platforms. Okay, so there's this social media platform called, what do you call, Zoom, that we are on. Okay, communication platform. So there's data on that. There's data in terms of the context that I share. There's data in terms of the knowledge that your people and you and all of them bring. So there's data. Okay, but in different spheres, in different places. Big So the reason why big data is so nice to talk about and all that is, it talks about bringing all of this into a frame of thinking that we can use it. Because when big data started, nobody actually sat and did a DBMS for big data. Okay, there was no database created for big data. They just realized, okay, for years and years and years we've been gathering data, what the hell are we doing with it? And they looked at the data that was there. And for you also, and for your organization also, I'm sure you all are using certain platforms. I'm sure there are certain online and offline platforms. um, the important thing is to look at what has been captured, what is there, and you will be surprised as to what has been captured. Because big data is not something intentional now only we are getting into intentional data capture, data retention. But big data is there. It was there. That's why we started using and started looking at data models to use the data that we have. So I would say, don't think of it as I don't have data. Think of it, what is the data that you have. If you look at that, then your way of looking at the problem becomes different. I mean, that's just from my understanding.
Yeah, the because I mean, the ASL is, I think, in a position where we are changing from how would I say, the paper-based system into a more electronic system.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, so that is
But there'll be
the reason.
yeah. So I mean, there's a transition period from paper to paper to digital.
Yeah.
But within digital, within paper itself, also there's a lot of tacit, qualitative information that you need to bring in. I think that's where your people power will come in, right? Because I'm sure the ones who are here in the forum and the ones who are there in the organization, they have a lot of tacit knowledge that needs to be captured into a modeling system. I think that's where the advantages will come. Okay, so everyone, if we thanks for sharing, everyone. I mean, the ones who kind of shared their thoughts. For being thank you for being very candid and being open about what you feel. That's very encouraging. So if there are no further questions, or if there's no further clarity that you want to make, or if there are no further comments, thank you for your time. And I hope you are able to, that you'll walk away with a better understanding of the business level integrations and the business level processes that you need to think about in terms of databases and data, and how little, even small data, things that you don't think about will have an impact on the work that you do, and kind of look at it in a different angle altogether. So thank you for your time. That's all from me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thanks, Chindu.
Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Mr. Piyantaka.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for your time.